if you listen carefully to the music that Dr. Tolley plays for the Amidah, you can usually pick up the theme of the service or what might be coming up. There are hints and clues. Did anybody recognize what she was playing? During the Amidah, Lift Every Voice and Sing is the Black American called national anthem. So thank you for that. Look it up. It has an incredible storied history. So connected to all of that in a way, and you'll see, I hope, how the connection becomes evident. We've been spending, we Jews, the last few years, we've been spending a great deal of time calling out and justifiably calling out and responding to this disturbing rise in anti-Semitism. It just seems like the world's oldest hatred is resurgent, and no question that events following October 7th have given fuel to the fire of those who, not that they need reasons, but if they need more reasons, they can find them. So over the past several years, we've supported, we meaning the Jewish community, statewide and national legislation. We've joined in writing, to respond to the anti-Semitic rise. We've joined in writing letters to universities where appropriate, and we've advocated whenever and wherever we could. And when we found the reactions of our elected leaders or those in charge of universities to be lackadaisical, we have raised our voices particularly stridently, and we've demanded action. We've also advocated in the past year for standards in Holocaust education here in California, and sought to include Jewish as a category in our ethnic studies curriculum. Our city, this city, Los Angeles, hosts not one, but two outstanding museums of the Holocaust, supported by the Jewish community, but also by the secular community as well. In fact, we have a tour coming up, check your Wise Guide, of the latest addition to the Los Angeles Museum of the Holocaust, or the Holocaust Museum of Los Angeles, I think they call it now, has opened a new pavilion, and we have a special tour just for Wise. So what we know is among the best ways to fight anti-Semitism is to make people aware of one of the worst manifestations of anti-Semitism in Nazi Germany. Not only do we Jews have an annual Jewish Day of Holocaust Remembrance, Yom HaShoah, that was established in Israel in 1951, 6 years after the Shoah. We've also succeeded in securing a United Nations initiated Holocaust Remembrance Day that was declared by that body in 2005, 60 years after the end of World War II. We are vocal, we Jews. We are public, we are adamant, we're assertive about reminding the world about its worst crime committed against us. And we refuse to allow anti-Semitism to go unchallenged. So I want you to hold that in mind, recognizing what we have done as a Jewish community as I talk about Juneteenth. This federal holiday was only established in 2021. That was 402 years after the first African slaves set foot on the shores of this nation. It was 156 years after the end of the Civil War. It was 158 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, 57 years after the Civil Rights Act was passed, and 13 years after the first African American president was elected. You see the discrepancy between Yom HaShoah and Juneteenth. As we've heard, as we know, it commemorates the day that America's last slaves were freed. It wasn't until 1865, though the Civil War ended in 1863. General Gordon Granger arrived by rowboat in Galveston, Texas, and brought the news of Order Number 3 to the state of Texas, and got Texas in line with the rest of the country, finally freeing its slaves. So what took us so long to make Juneteenth a holiday? What took this nation so long to commemorate the end of this greatest and cruelest blight on the world's strongest democracy? And most importantly, why are so many still debating and even attempting to rewrite America's long and painful history of enslaving human beings? Why is it even remotely controversial in this nation that statues of American traitors Confederate leaders have finally been taken down. Most of those statues were only put up in the 1920s. Why? By resurgent white Christian nationalism in the South. We should be celebrating the tearing down of those statues, not debating whether they should go back up. A whitewashing of history is finally ended. And what bizarre calculus has led the Heritage Foundation and other right-wing scholars today to advocate for minimizing the role of slavery in the retelling of American history in our museums and in our schools, even though that attempt of theirs flies in the face of facts? How can some politicians and some state boards of education insist on proclaiming that the Civil War was about states' rights when every written document from the Confederate States asserts that it was about slavery? Why are we still having this conversation? We Jews would never accept such a denial of our history. Never. Nor should we. We've demanded and we've funded Holocaust memorial museums and monuments throughout the world. We have secured a national museum of the Holocaust in D.C. We insist that Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust memorial and museum, is a first stop for any diplomat or new visitor to Israel. We've demanded and sustained Holocaust studies chairs at schools throughout the world. Why is that our agenda? Because we know that an accurate accounting of the past and that the existence of constant and enduring reminders of that past is vital. Not only does it keep humanity's most horrific the memory of humanity's most horrific genocide alive, not only does it acknowledge the virtue and bravery of those who fought against it, not only does it recognize and affirm the role of the world in fighting the evil that was Nazi Germany and its collaborators, but importantly, it gives us, Jews, a moral high ground from which to challenge and to fight anti-Semitism. And when we face opposition from those who would deny our history, we rightfully declare them anti-Semitic. So why does anyone deny African Americans the same prerogative? Why won't this painful history be told honestly and completely? I think it's clear. We recognize anti-Semitism and we call it out. Let's recognize racism and call it out and acknowledge it for what it is. And how can we, of all people who have experienced anti-Semitism, which is a form of racism, not acknowledge the racism when it's directed against others? Why are we not screaming from the rooftops? Why are organizations not screaming from the rooftops about successful efforts in the South? That same South that only 60 years ago fought for its Jim Crow laws. Why are we not shouting now that they're gerrymandering legislative districts? The same districts that were created by civil rights commissions to redress underrepresentation of Black Americans are now being re-gerrymandered to return to underrepresentation of Black Americans. Why are we not screaming from the rooftops about a Supreme Court that cynically declared it's okay to gerrymander for political reasons, but not racial, when the very effect we know is the same? How can we remain silent? As I said, Opal, our marcher, said that Juneteenth is celebratory, but it's also commemorative. And Yom HaShoah is commemorative only. But both days serve similar ends. From the 17th century until such transport was stopped in the Southern Passage, 12.5 million Africans were transported across the Atlantic. It's estimated that 2 million of them died en route. this country counted 4 million slaves, human beings enslaved by others, by 1860. How many died at the hands of their masters over those hundreds of years? How many women and children were raped by their masters? How many were brutally whipped and beaten every day? Yeah, Juneteenth is a day of celebration. It's a day of celebration that a national disgrace and ethical failing ended. And it's also Memorial Day that affirms for African Americans the very same prerogative that we have insisted upon as Jews, the ability to write our own history, and the knowledge that we are uniquely qualified to recognize when our version of racism, anti-Semitism, appears, and acknowledge it and call it out when we see it. American blacks, trust me, they know racism when they see it, and yet there are those who say, it doesn't exist. And we shouldn't forget that many, many Jews are descendants of enslaved Americans. And these folks have to carry the double whammy of anti-Semitism and racism. And again, if you have ever given an ounce of credibility to those who might declare that the fight is over, consider just a few recent examples. Only last week, at the atrocious and nationally embarrassing mixed martial arts travesty held on the White House lawn, one of the fighters on the national broadcast decided that it was vital to slur a previous first lady and say that Michelle Obama is a man. The vileness of his words are only matched by the failure of many political leaders to condemn them. Repeatedly, prominent public politicians and personalities embrace white supremacy or make derogatory racial comments. Now, to be sure, some politicians and pundits condemn the remarks. Others, to their disgrace, are silent or offer transparent justifications. In the past couple of years, black generals have been up for promotions in our military. They were recommended by their superiors. They were recognized for their qualifications by this country. They have been denied their promotions. By whom? By our supremely underqualified Secretary of Defense. How can we, of all people, remain silent? I want to make one more thing abundantly clear. I love this country. I will live nowhere else. I can think of no better place to see my family grow, and I will die and I will be buried in this land. And it's because of my patriotism, precisely because of my patriotism, that I demand an accurate accounting of American history, my country's history, both its virtues and its vices. And because of my Jewish patriotism, I require that America's strengths and deficits be acknowledged by all, that they be taught in our schools, that they be memorialized in our museums, and they be integrated into our understanding of what it means to be an American. In 3 weeks, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of this great nation. And we are proud citizens of a nation like no other ever seen in the history of the world. And we have every right to be proud of that. And at the same time, in the same thought, we can recognize with our pride and our love and our commitment that there is still much work to be done. What are we waiting for? Let's get started. Recognizing the day, thanks to Cantor Lauren, I have a prayer written by Rabbi Sandra Lawson, a black Jewish American who is executive director of Carolina Jews for Justice, a musician, an activist, a writer, and a U.S. Army veteran, as our prayer for our nation. She wrote, "On this Juneteenth, We remember and honor the end of black chattel slavery in the United States. We give thanks for the resilience and strength of our ancestors who endured unimaginable hardships and fought for freedom and dignity. We recognize the work that still needs to be done to achieve true equality and justice for all. May we be inspired by Juneteenth's spirit of liberation and the pursuit of justice. Let us commit ourselves to the ongoing struggle for freedom and equality, guided by the principles of righteousness and loving kindness. As we celebrate this day, may we pray for the strength to stand against oppression, the wisdom to seek justice, and the compassion to build a world where all people are free and treated with dignity and respect. And we say, Amen.